Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new episode of the Fintech Hunting Podcast. We have an amazing guest for you today. I should say a repeat guest. He is an industry thought leader, a call center expert, extremely well respected in financial services. I couldn't be more excited today to welcome back Rob Baer, CEO at Anamoly Squared. Rob, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Michael. I'm looking forward to it. Our last one was really engaging and fun. So let's see if we can do it again.
Fantastic. Well, Rob, you have a wealth of industry knowledge and expertise. Let's talk a little bit about some of the current conditions in financial services specifically, but what are some of the things you guys are seeing out there as the market starts to shift? And then we'll dive a lot deeper into how call centers and customer support and everything else is impacted.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, what we're noticing, one, is a lot of our partners are reaching out and we're talking about things of ways call centers can help in certain situations. For example, retention in not just the mortgage industry, but nationwide is a major focus right now. Retention of loan officers, retention of employees. And so what we're finding is call centers can help reduce that stress level for your current loan advisors through a myriad of ways. But really, that's the big trend that seems to be, like all the companies are sort of faced with and are trying to overcome.
Oh, and I think that's so critical. And let's touch upon that. We'll dive a little bit deeper. We're talking retention. And as you mentioned, it's not just the loan officers, which is critical, right? As the market shifts, as rates have been fluctuating, mortgage companies are looking for, how do I retain my top producers? Part of that is giving them the tools, having a call center, and I want you to address that in a second, but also any of the borrowers, they want to have someone that they can go to. And what's one of the biggest frustrations people find that they, when they're trying to deal with the lender, what do you see as one of those big friction points that if they could just do X, they would be in a much better position to retain not only their LOs, but really keep their clients a lot happier?
I think the first step is be available, right? If you've traveled any over the last 3 months, there's canceled flights, delayed flights, and you make phone calls and no one answers the phone, and it becomes very frustrating. The same applies to the mortgage industry, and the retention rates are affecting having those loan advisors and officers available to answer those phone calls. And so there becomes this cycle of frustration, right? Because customer calls, can't get somebody on the phone. Then when they do finally, somebody does finally answer, it can be a heated and pretty tough conversation to have, which leads to some of the loan advisors being frustrated. And then you've got this big circle or cycle of sort of frustration just simply because people aren't available to answer phone calls. And I think we've all been there in some sort of form or fashion. And I think that's having a major impact on sort of customer service, their CSAT scores, and people want to be serviced right now.
That is such an important point, and I think I want to make sure we repeat it, because I think too many times people think because it's a general statement of be available, oh, well, that sounds super easy. The difficult part is really being able to execute on that, and I want to talk about how having a call center allows people to be available, right? Because as the market shifts, as loan officers, some come, some go, as they're looking for different opportunities, as lenders have had to make some tough moves internally and really start to right-size their organization, they don't necessarily have the resources to have a call center. So talk about outsourcing and having a call center so that when we use the phrase be available, it's actually a way to execute on that.
Yeah. So one of the things that we really like to do at Anamoly Squared is we partner with our lending institution, other lending institutions, and we work on scripts and we work on some of the common questions that somebody may call and just ask, right? So we're offering sort of a concierge service, and as we work through those scripts and work through those questions with the lending institutions, we're able to answer some of the simple questions that can reduce that stress and sort of concern from the borrower or the person that's reaching out to them. And so that's extremely critical, because many times what we're finding is 30 seconds, 60 seconds, just answering a few questions for the customer can really reduce those pain points, improve your customer service levels, improve your customer engagement. And then again, our call center agents are trained to specifically handle those circumstances where, if you're a lending institution, you want your loan officers and loan advisors closing sales, right? So we are sort of a pillar of support in that regard, because we can answer those simple questions and take on those processes for lending institutions, and really allow those companies to focus on closing sales and providing top level service.
That is so important. And I think too many times, people kind of take it for granted being available. As you mentioned, traveling, I've been traveling a ton. I think I traveled 21 days in June. Just got back from a trip late last night, and it was frustrating, right? You're at a hotel and they didn't come and clean your room, and you call and they don't answer. And then they're like, well, there's no one in housekeeping right now. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I just want some clean towels. I mean, how hard is this? And I'm not talking about some dumpy hotels, but just getting in, when you get somebody on the line and they're like, Mr. Hammond, I'm right now helping 3 other guests, but if you can give me 15 minutes, I'll have that right up to you. Totally different experience.
Exactly.
My mood has calmed down. I'm kind of like, okay, hey, it's me 15 minutes, a little inconvenience, not a big deal. When they don't respond, when you can't get a hold of them, when they tell you no one's available, then that friction goes up even higher. And if that's with a towel at a hotel, I can only imagine how that is with trying to purchase a home or trying to refinance one of the largest financial transactions in my life, and I can't get a hold of anybody.
Yeah, it's a scary situation, right? When you're buying, and it's very easy, it's very easy to forget that this could be that person's first experience buying a home. They're not sure of the process. They've never gone through these steps. They're not really they're not aware of sort of the hiccups that can occur throughout the process of closing on a home. And so having somebody available, just like you said, that can quickly answer, put the customer at ease, that conversation with you trying to get the towel would have taken 15 seconds.
Right.
And it completely changes your outlook the rest of the day. As long as, of course, they get back to you in 15 minutes or the towel comes to you.
Exactly.
But it's the same thing when you're buying a home. We're all nervous, right? You have questions. You're not sure. What's the next step? Okay, I'm approved. What do I do next? And so having somebody that can provide that sort of concierge, sort of keep your customer at ease, increases your customer satisfaction, which long-term increases your customer retention, which is, again, the more customers you retain, the more loan officers you retain. So they kind of work hand in hand.
Well, and I think that working in tandem and hand in hand is critical, right? Because if you can keep them loyal, the customer, the loan officer, the employees that you're working for, that satisfaction goes up all the way around, right? It's self-fulfilling. If your internal employees are happy, they're going to deliver a better customer experience. If they deliver a better customer experience, the borrower is going to be happier. They're going to be more satisfied. They're going to give more referrals. And as rates have risen, if rates shift, which in the mortgage industry, they always do. We've been in this long enough.
Yeah.
Those are great candidates for refis, but they're only going to go back to people they know and people they trust. That's where that communication and having that always on and available becomes very, very critical.
Yeah, I read a stat the other day. It was over 60% of loyal customers refer you to somebody.
Wow.
Right, that's a big stat. I mean, that's something, so, and then we all know that retaining a customer is much less expensive than acquiring a customer. Right. And so, I think that data is, 75% or something in that neighborhood. So, customer retention, customer loyalty, customer referrals, again, it's a vicious cycle if we're not ahead of the game. And, that's where the call center support can come in.
Well, and I think that call center support becomes absolutely critical, right? I mean, I'll give you another example, and you've probably experienced this too. About a month ago, I was flying and my flight just got canceled. Notice late on a Friday night, I was going to meet my daughter. It was important. We had interviews and some things we had to take care of and just canceled. So I call the airlines, right? You know, I'm an elite member because I fly enough. I call the airlines and they're like, click this button and we'll get back to you in 5.5 hours. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Do I have to stay up till 2 a.m. for you to tell me that there's not another flight? What are my options? And I bring that up as examples because I think it's so critical for people to understand the frustration that we can reduce, the friction points that we can eliminate in the mortgage industry by being available, having someone on the phone, being able to just diffuse some of those things. Retention rates will go up. When that happens, you get better satisfaction scores. They're going to refer more people. It has so many benefits that people, I think, sometimes just overlook. Oh, yeah, Rob and Michael said be available. But executing on that becomes absolutely critical. Let's talk about some of the other things that when you have a call center, what you can do from a customer support perspective to really improve that or stop from the situation getting a lot worse.
Well, I think the first one is, picking up the phone. And we really take the time for our agents to ask the right questions, right? So when somebody's coming on the line, if they're upset, we teach them, number one, how to diffuse the situation, calm the situation down, ask the right questions to find out what the customer is looking to accomplish in that moment. And then, we're able, so the one of the positives is through those conversations, we're able to capture critical data that can also be passed back to the lending institutions. And so we create worksheets and, it really creates a nice sort of symbiotic relationship between a call center, a BPO, and those lending institutions because, one, they're answering the questions, they're quelling the negative circumstances, they're capturing critical data that can be used.
Oh, such an important point about capturing the data. The other thing that I think is a very subtle point that you just made, and it's probably because you guys don't want to brag about how great you are and the incredible things that Anomaly does as an outsourced call center, but having people that are trained in a call center versus just an employee picking up the phone are two radically different things. People that have been trained, people that know how to ask the right questions, people that know how to diffuse the situation. Talk a little bit about that knowledge and expertise of an outsourced staff versus just anyone in the organization picking up the phone.
Well, I think a lot of people may think it's just easy, right? It's just common sense, but it's really not. We spend a lot of time internally training from the get-go, from bringing somebody on board. We're explaining the right, we outline those questions to ask. We talk about tone. We talk about using, lowering volume to match the customer so that you put them at ease. I mean, there's subtle sort of pieces that we're going to train within Anamoly Squared that prepares them to handle those potentially negative situations. And the other component of that is when a call center specializes in that, we have hundreds of agents available, right? And they understand, one, how to handle those different circumstances. They understand the lending institution's needs. They understand the markets. So they are able to communicate specifically to those negative or talk to those negative situations where if you've got a loan advisor, again, I mean, you're training them to sell. And yes, you want to train them to handle those circumstances, but that's not where you're going to spend most of your time. You're teaching them the processes. You're teaching them how to close. You're teaching them the steps in closing a loan and not necessarily handling those tough questions that a customer may have. In call centers, that's what we teach. A concierge services is explaining and reviewing how do you take those negative situations through a series of questions, through the right volume and tone, and when that customer hangs up and they are done, they feel good about what just took place.
They feel that they were heard. They feel that somebody listened to them, which is critical. Those are so many good points. The other thing I want to make sure we touch upon, Rob, that I think is critical to call centers is all of the technology that you guys have at your disposal that the typical organization hasn't either been exposed to or hasn't invested in as it relates to call center and call routing and being able to store the data and keywords and AI. Talk to me a little bit about all the technology that goes into running a highly advanced call center.
It's a great question. So there are a number of pieces that sort of impact that. I mean, every customer communicates differently. Is it email? Is it texting? Is it calling? Is it, picking up the phone? And so that's an omni-channel solution that that if a strong call center is going to have those multiple means of communication, because everybody does it differently, right? My father wants the phone call right away. I'm probably okay with an email going back and forth, just simply through a busy day. My son, he's 26, he wants texting. And so call centers specialize in all those different means of communication. That's one of the components of it. The other piece to this is, how do you train now in this virtual world, right? In this remote world. And so we spend a lot of time and have invested a lot of resources into building training modules through the learning management systems that can teach and develop the agents in a call center to be prepared for all of the different sort of situations they may be exposed to.
Fantastic. Well, Rob, you and I could go on for hours talking. You're always a wealth of knowledge. I always learn something new. I know you have some upcoming conferences. Will I see you in California? I think you're going to be heading to the Accelerate conference.
Yes, we will be there. I'm actually going out a few days early to enjoy Huntington Beach. But yes, we will be there. We're looking forward to it. We were there last year. It was an incredible event. I highly recommend, if you're in the lending institution or if you're in the mortgage industry, you should attend. It's great. It's fantastic.
Well, I look forward to seeing you there. And like I said, I know you guys will be sharing from the stage some of the incredible things that Anamoly Squared is doing. Rob, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you today, they don't want to wait until Huntington Beach in a week or two, what's the best way they can get a hold of you or anyone else at Anamoly Squared?
You can definitely go on our website, www.anomolysquared.com. Reach out to me via email. It's rbear@anomalysquared.com. The bear is spelled like the aspirin. And we have also Tony Furr. He's our Vice President of Sales and Business Development. His email address is tfurr, Furr, @anomalysquared.com. Send us something direct. We'll reach out to you right away.
Fantastic. Rob, thank you for being a guest on this episode of the Fintech Hunting Podcast.
Thank you. Good catching up.